can't believe I gotta have this conversation.
If he don't win this year, he's a bum.
What? Yo, that's a Hall of Fame terrible take right there.
No, it's not. It's true. It's so true.
What?
Facts. My take ended up being right.
Boy just choked. Straight women booty and let the ball go.
No.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you.
LeBron James
puts up a three. Won't go. Rebound box. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Irving and Curry. One-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown.
Oh, yeah, but we'll get to explaining and debating in a second. How we feeling, Joseph?
Hey, I'm good. Just got off work. Just took us to the wine, so I can't mad.
Off work to do some more quasi work, but it's all good. Joe, it is a great day to discuss basketball. I know college football is going on, some crazy games. There was a crazy finish last night with Miami and Virginia Tech. But right after we hopped off our NFL show last night, Joe, we had some blockbuster news in the NBA that we're going to have to dive into. Karl Anthony-Towns going over to New York to join up with Jalen Brunson and the rest of the Knicks. They did have to take one away from the Nova boys, but we'll see. We'll get each other's reactions on that one.
I didn't even know about it. No Woj kind of messed me up. You were my Woj. I didn't even get a notification or anything. I was like, hold on, wait a minute. I had to push Shams on. I had to put Shams on. Yeah, I had to turn his notifications on because I didn't. I was like, what is Will talking about? And I looked and I was like, damn, Corey went to Twitter right away. Apparently that's a news.
Gotta go to Twitter. Gotta kind of, depending on what type of news you're trying to
breaking
get.
sports news.
It's good.
For sports news, you absolutely gotta go because that's where all the sports people are breaking stories and shit.
Exactly. But after we talk about the NBA, WNBA playoffs in full effect, we had a sweep of sweeps, you could say, in the first round. Every single higher seeded team swept the other. So we will then dive into a little reaction to those games, and then we'll talk about the upcoming series here for the semifinals, which will now move on to the best of five format. But Joe, you know where we got to start.
Hurricane
got to start with Karl Anthony-Towns getting traded to the Knicks. So full details of the trade: Knicks get Karl Anthony-Towns. Minnesota gets Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, a first-round pick via Detroit. Important caveat to that. That's not a Knicks pick. That's a Detroit Pistons pick. And then Charlotte is sort of randomly
top 13 protected.
They are getting Daquan Jeffries and some other draft compensation. So congratulations for helping balance the salary cap, Charlotte. That's about all they're good for recently in the NBA. So, Joe, the first question I got to ask you, are you team New York here or are you team Minnesota here? Who do you like? Who do you think won the trade?
To be 100% honest, I'm undecided. I don't know how to feel about it 100% because when I look at it, I feel like Karl Anthony-Towns fits what the Knicks want to do with that speed and space in the floor, and Julius Randle can be a black hole sometimes. And see how Minnesota's like, we need that dog mentality that Karl Anthony-Towns doesn't have, and Julius Randle has that. So they pretty much got rid of Drake and brought in Kendrick Lamar. Is what they did. But my only issue is I don't know how Julius Randle is going to fit. He just had a deal with – he had to take a step back to Jalen Brunson, a young blossoming guard, and that took a minute. But then they kind of got rolling, but then he got injured, and they kept it rolling. Is he going to want to do that in a whole nother situation with Anthony Edwards? Or are they both mentally dogs, and they going to be able to click together, and now – you have a little bit more fear in the Minnesota Timberwolves because now they got a scorer who you can rely. So he a dog mentally. He's not gonna pussy out of a game because you get put a little couple fouls on him early, or he's not gonna do a whole bunch of stupid fouls like Karl Anthony-Towns. To me, right now, it's more of a wait and see. I'd like it, but I don't love it. I can understand why the teams did it, but I gotta see it in action before I can even give it a grade. To be honest.
All right, Joe, do me a favor. I'm gonna start my spiel. Give me a refresh. Your audio is starting to not match your visuals, so just give me a quick refresh. But I will respond to that. I think, from my perspective, I like the trade more. I think for Minnesota. I think Minnesota gets tougher. I think the Knicks. The Knicks to me, so Joe, my recap, I like this a little more for Minnesota. I think Minnesota wins this trade. They get, I think, some needed shooting with Dante DiVincenzo. I think was a very underrated factor in the Knicks run
you can't forget
this
about
past
him.
year.
Yeah.
So that's some shooting they're going to be missing. We talked about, like, there's different types of shooters. There are plenty of people in the NBA that will shoot a really good percentage from three. But can they actually manage that
when it matters?
Well, it's not even when it matters, but can they manage that percentage on a higher volume, right? Like Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby,
OG Anunoby's not going to keep doing that.
Like, I don't see them taking 9 threes in a game and making 3 or 4 very consistently, like Dante DiVincenzo.
Hell no.
So, on a sense, I get it. They've got a bunch of nice wing defenders now. To kind of cover up for what Brunson can't do, and now you get a more reliable center that I think they needed, a little more size than what Julius Randle could provide them. But and I know, I'm pretty sure Tibbs did have Karl Anthony-Towns when he coached in Minnesota, so he is familiar with him. The personalities there just never really seem to align for me. Like, Karl Anthony-Towns is just not Tibbs tough, and so. I don't know. I don't love the fit for New York. I get it's going to
play defense too with Tibbs.
A little bit for them. So, like, I don't hate it for the Knicks. I'm pretty close to loving it for Minnesota, though. The fit, we talked about it as soon as they made the trade for Rudy Gobert. Putting those two together was just weird, stupid, didn't really make sense. So now they have a more, I think, traditional mix between their 4 and their 5, with Julius Randle being more of your new age 4, can put the ball on the ground, can shoot it, can do a lot of things. I trust Julius Randle as a second option a hell of a lot more than I trust Karl Anthony-Towns as a second option, just in terms of just getting a bucket. I would rather throw the ball to Julius Randle than throw it into Karl Anthony-Towns or watch him cast 13 threes a game. And
that's fair. That's fair.
So I like that, and then I like the shooting that DiVincenzo is going to provide to them. I think a core of Anthony Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo, and Julius Randle is kind of your 3 main offensive weapons. I like that. I like that a lot.
And then you can give Anthony Edwards a little bit of rest with DiVincenzo can go play some defense every now and then too. Like, hey, you don't have to have Anthony Edwards guard the best player on the other team the whole game.
Yep.
And even if you do, you got a scorer and a shooter over there with DiVincenzo who's going to be fresh. And he is clutch. Like, you got to give him credit.
He made a lot of
clutch shots. He always finds a way to be in the right spot.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of this for Minnesota. I can give the Knicks a wait and see. Like, I don't hate it that much to where I think it's just automatically a stupid trade. But yeah, I don't know about that toughness, and I don't know how that's all gonna mesh down in there. And look, Karl Anthony-Towns didn't seem to respond to just like the sometimes elevated pressure of playing a playoff game in Minnesota. Let the Knicks have a bad outing where he doesn't play well.
And then not only that, his response already to the was problematic. Like the ... Like, that's your response? Soft activity, man. I think he should have had a better response. Like, if you're gonna say something, like, bro, you going to the Knicks, you leaving Minnesota. Like, I get it. And I think they're on the parallel trajectories. Like, it's not like you got downgraded, bro. You got traded for two players in the NBA and a first-round pick. Like, it's not like they gave up on you. You go into a situation that actually may be more conducive for you and your talents, and you go into a better media market where you can focus on your post-career and your podcast and shit talking that you like to do already. So I think that he should be looking at it totally differently instead of that ... He probably upset because they didn't talk to him first type shit.
I don't know. All the reports that I had read was that this had been in the making for about 3 months. So I can't imagine it's that much of a surprise to him. But who knows how true all that is? Because there was also reports that like the Heat were apparently interested in getting Julius Randle, which I just find interesting. I don't know that I love like I can't imagine like Spoelstra being like, you know what type of player needs to go right next to Bam? Another undersized big man. Like I don't know. It just doesn't really seem to make a ton of sense to me. Granted, bigger than who we would usually be putting at the 4 in Caleb Martin, but nonetheless, big blockbuster trade. But let's move on to the league that is currently in the playoffs. Like I said earlier, a sweep of sweeps in the first round. The WNBA, all of the higher seeded teams won. They all won 2-0. A lot of them in very convincing fashion. The Aces and the Storm played a little bit more of a contentious 2 games, but nonetheless, Aces swept. So, Joe, give me your reaction first. We'll start with the real easy one. Liberty versus Dallas. Not much of a contest there. But what'd you think of that series?
I tried to tell you. Liberty, they're just too good. So it was really no surprise.
Were we pretending like I chose Dallas to win?
No, but you tried. I told me you kept acting like you try to put some like they got some respectable players. They got blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I ain't trying to hear none of that.
No. The only team I ain't trying to hear none of that.
Yes, you did.
Storm. I only stuck up for the Seattle Storm. I did not stick up for Dallas.
But they do what they're supposed to do, man. The Liberty are just too good, man. Like, we're gonna see what they do. We'll talk in the next round, but they just do what they did. I mean, what can you really say? They're just the better team. How much Dallas could do?
Yeah, they didn't do the thing where that some very favorite teams do, where they kind of come out too lax and kind of give away a game. They didn't do that, so that's good. They did what they're supposed to do. Not going to read too much into it. Hey, they've been the best team all year throughout the regular season. They showed that again. Congrats to them. Next year, I want to talk about, Joe. We had the Minnesota Lynx. Minnesota Lynx sweep the Phoenix Mercury. And again, as we kind of talked about last night in our Love or Violence portion of our NFL podcast, but this could have been Diana Taurasi's last game. She is allegedly undecided on if she's going to retire or not, but it just seems like the vibe around it is that she is going to retire. She didn't go out in the best fashion, only scoring 10 points, which is obviously not to the Diana Taurasi standard. So, Joe, what do you think of that series? That last game was pretty close. The Mercury were in that game until they weren't. Nafisa Collier was incredible. She had the most points ever scored in a first 2 games of the playoffs in WNBA history. So, what do you think of the Lynx and the Fever? Or not? I'm sorry, the Lynx and the Mercury.
You mean? Oh, I thought you were going to spew a whole bunch of Caitlin Clark stats. My fault. You actually talked about another WNBA player who made history. Look at that. I'm proud of you.
Look at us.
But it's amazing. I'm going to just say that, first of all, bogus as hell. They didn't pump up that this was Taurasi's could potentially be her last game until it was the fourth quarter and they was down by like 12 points. I got a notification like, ooh, watch, because this could be her last game. Like, you got to pump it on, put more respect on her. She's had a huge impact game. Hopefully, and hey, like you said, I'm not going to blame her. She only had 10 points on her. If this is her last game, like, this is like Kobe in the regular season. This is a playoff game. It's not like they was going to ease up because it was her last game. And they were playing up a tougher opponent. Brittany Griner looks slow and old. What did I say she looked like? I think we were watching it, and I said she looks like unconditioned Joel Embiid.
I'm not going to disrespect her like that.
That's what she looked like running up and down the court. I was like, oh, yeah. It's just they may have to change their direction up there in Phoenix. But Minnesota, they did what they did. They just, like I said, they got somebody who they can give the ball to, and Collier can just give you 25 if she wants to any night. She's
25.
Just that good.
You mean and a half?
30. Yeah.
She might give you 25 and a half. She damn sure going to give you 25 in the game because, golly, 38. And then she said, you know what, I'll follow it up. I'll one-up that and go 43 in game 2. I mean, yeah, she was unstoppable.
Ridiculous.
And I remember we were talking about this before. I was like a little concerned. It was like, well, she likes to live around she can live around the rim quite a bit, and Reiner's going to be there. No, it didn't matter. She was knocked down all her jump shots.
Too slow.
She's making threes. I mean, she couldn't. There was nothing they could do. It didn't matter who they put on her. I do want to give a shout out to Natasha Cloud on the Mercury. I thought she had a really good series, and
she did.
If there's a little glimmer of hope for them to have somebody kind of going forward, I know she's not the youngest player in the league, but she has still got a lot of good basketball left in front of her. I thought
she got a number one. She like a number two. Like she a good solid two. I know. And look what happened. She's a solid player though. She's really good.
She's very good.
Obviously, they'll get a good young player, and then with her, it's a good start. I get it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they got to be feeling encouraged with her performance. They need to, like you said, kind of retool, think about new things. Taurasi's been there for 20 years basically. So it's like it's hard to replace that and kind of usher that person out. We've rarely seen NBA teams kind of be able to do that with their legends, right? Like Kobe was going to start through the end, and they just kind of had to eat that the game, the team wasn't going to be as competitive, right? We saw Dwayne Wade kind of fizzle out. The Heat did make the move to put him on the bench, but still, like, the Heat team was just not really able to completely be competitive until he was gone, and they could fully retool, obviously, when got Jimmy Butler, right? We see what happens every time LeBron leaves Cleveland. It's a bloodbath. So it's just like it's hard to replace people that are that stature within one organization. So I have no issues. I have no issue with how they've handled it. Hopefully they can retool and continue to be relevant in the W as the league expands. But let's talk about the series that everyone wants to talk about. The Connecticut Sun swept Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. After a rough game one, Caitlin Clark bounced back a little bit and put up 25, 9, and 5, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly.
No, her second game was good. Her
second game was solid. Like you and I both said in our preview, the Sun, that's just they're in a different tier than the Indiana Fever. The Fever did make the second game a little more competitive than the first, but what was your overall reaction to that series?
The offense, like I knew that the Connecticut Sun were going to come out and play excellent defense and make it hard for Caitlin Clark. But 3 players dropping 20 plus, that's scary. And like they're 3, like 2 of them were their best defensive players. Like that shit is scary. Like, and they had 2 point guards that they could just rotate in and put in on Caitlin Clark, and they were making things difficult for Caitlin Clark. They just know how to guard her. Their defense was too good. Like, I do like the way Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston have progressed. Aaliyah Boston looks huge for that pick and roll and getting everybody else involved. But Connecticut was just too good. That defense was clamped down. And when they're scoring points, like, there's just nothing you can do because they're going to keep you from scoring a lot of points. And if they got 3 players making 20-plus points a game, it's going to be tough for you to beat them in 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, the most kind of notable part of that series was Marina Mabrey deciding to be a 20 point per game scorer and lead the Sun in points per game. I don't think many people had that quite on their bingo card, but that's okay. That's kind of what you need.
That's what they brought in.
Yeah, I mean, a good 3-point shooter. She was, taking 11 of those things a game, making 4. So, good for her. But the main takeaway for me is just, again, as good as Caitlin Clark is, there's still a level that she has to get to in terms of completely controlling a game like a point guard needs to in these big time matchups, right? And I think we saw the kind of perfect example of a, we call it point guard or point forward or whatever. Alyssa Thomas was masterful in that series, averaging 13 assists a game, 16 or 17 points a game. I mean, 15 and a half, 16 points a game. Only 1 turnover a game. So 13 assists to 1 turnover, plus 7.5 rebounds.
That's insane.
Just incredible, just control of that game. And in a series where the Fever like to get up and down, run a lot of opportunities for turnovers, but she just always maintained her poise and kept them under control. And I think that's why they were able to, blow them out obviously in game one, because they had Caitlin in jail over there trying to maneuver. And then in game two, even when things started to get a little closer, Alyssa Thomas could just always keep them composed, under control. I think Caitlin gets there eventually. Maybe it's as soon as next year, maybe it takes it 2 or 3 more years, but that's the difference right there. That's the difference. Because you can't tell me that
the Suns looks more like a veteran team than I game too. At the end of the game,
yeah, they know what they're doing.
They just knew exactly what they wanted to do in the last end of the game. It was like, yeah, you're gonna make a stretch run and stuff, but we're good. We'll be all right.
Yeah, they were poised enough to be able to withstand the runs that a Caitlin Clark-led team will have, and yeah, just really, really great performance for them. Very excited for that next round matchup of them against the Sun. But first, let's talk about the last first round series. The Aces did end up sweeping Seattle Storm. Seattle Storm made both those games very competitive until the Aces pulled away within the last few minutes of each game. So, Joe, what was your kind of takeaway from that series? Are you feeling even more emboldened about the Aces, or did that shake your confidence a little bit with how the Aces had finished the regular season?
I feel like they righted the ship. I feel like they turned that. I know that a lot of people say that's not a real thing. I think with veteran teams and certain teams who've been there, done that, is a real thing. I think A'ja Wilson is locked in and was like, okay, it's time to go. And everybody on the team has followed suit. I think everybody's getting back into the mode of, okay, I have a role to play on this team. I'm going to play that role every single night and we'll be good. I don't think people are going out of their way to get the shine and the starlight, because they know on a championship run, you just do the shine going to come to you no matter what. So I thought it was a good competition. I think Seattle made it a little bit closer than I thought they were going to be, but I think that was something good for the Aces too. So they knew, like, okay, we got to play serious every single game. None of this, almost said, I don't even know what word to use. I can't even say that. Gossip, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying not to be sexist. What's the word? Chit chatter. The background noise to get in the way of winning. And I think they're obviously the best team probably in the playoffs because they've been there, done that. You got to respect what they do. So A'ja Wilson is just so good, and the fact that she won MVP, and you can see the happiness of the team, I think that helped them out a lot too, because it seemed like you came back to the team and focused on what they need to get done, and they really weren't doing that at the end of the season. And now, from watching the games, it seems like things just clicked. People were in the right spots, making the right shots. They weren't BSing around, taking stupid shots. They were making extra passes. And that's what you're going to do. You have to do in the playoffs. So I'm going to give them the credit for turning that light switch on quickly.
Yeah, I think the Aces, for me, it was definitely a confidence boost in their play. I think the Aces, it's kind of what we've gotten used to seeing the last 2 years in their championship runs, where somebody outside of A'ja Wilson always comes through, whether it's Jackie Young or Kelsey Plum or Chelsea Gray. Like, someone always comes through. Tiffany Hayes had a great series, I thought. Alicia Clark makes some big threes, plays great defense, takes a big charge in key moments of a game, right? Like, they just have so many people that are willing to do those little things when it's really time to play right now in the playoffs. We didn't see as much of that, I don't think, in the regular season as we were kind of accustomed to, which is why I think you and I were getting a little concerned about the Aces. But in that series, they were able to flip right on it, right? Game one, Kelsey Plum was dealing with some sort of bug. She was vomiting, doing all these things. Did not have it in the game. We're just having an awful game. Tiffany Hayes comes through, makes some clutch buckets. Chelsea Gray does her thing at the end of the game, making some clutch buckets, playing good defense. All those things. Like, they made all the winning plays that we were accustomed to them making. So I'm very excited for the next round. We will start there. Liberty versus Aces. Joe, to me, this is the championship. I know it's just the semifinals. Ooh. This is best of 5. I can't imagine either one of these teams losing in the next round, but I will say Nafisa, I shouldn't say that because Nafisa deserves a chance in the next round if she can get the Minnesota Lynx there, because how well she has played. But let's start with this one. Liberty versus Aces. Who you got, Joe? In how many games? Best of 5.
Ooh. This is going 5. This is definitely going 5. But, man, this is really tough. It's gonna go 5, but I'm gonna give it to the Aces because all the reasons you just said. They're deep. They've been there, done that. They're the champions. Wilson coming off an MVP season. I think that's gonna them ride things out too. They obviously have 2 superstar teams when you look at Stewie and Sabrina, but that third option that still worries me. I just don't know if they can keep up with the Aces because like one person have a down night with the Aces, somebody else is going to step up, and they're so deep and they're almost a juggernaut type team, and they got the better coach. Like Sabrina, and they may get off, but I just don't think that's going to be enough in a 5-game series. Like it may win you a game or two, but I don't know if them doing it every single night. There's always that third person, even in the NBA. There's always that third person who gets highlighted for at least one game because they showed up and did something. And I just don't know if the Liberty are going to get that chance or have that person. So I'm going to go with the Aces in 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the Liberty, that third person has to be Jonquel Jones. I mean, she is, she's got some range. As a big man, she can kind of take Asia out of the paint to help the other players potentially score around the rim. But, I mean, it's hard for me to get last year out of my mind because I don't know that I see like the big acquisition or development of a player for the Liberty that makes me think that this series is really going to go any differently than it did last year, right? We saw Sabrina and Breanna Stewart really struggled last year in the finals against the Aces, really had a hard time scoring, getting any easy looks. And again, you can have those two and you can dominate a team like Dallas. It's different when you play one of these teams like the Aces, who's got, like we've been saying, a lot of different options. They've got a lot of people they can throw at Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu. Like, it's just it's a different monster. So Jonquel Jones in the finals last year, she had some good games, but then she also had some games where she was just kind of okay, and a lot of those were combined with games where Breanna Stewart wasn't really able to get going. So it's going to be, I think, very heavily on Sabrina and Breanna. They kind of need to lead the charge. I'm going to take the Aces, though. I'm going to take the Aces I'm going to take them in 5. I'm going to be respectful because the Liberty have been so dominant this year. But I'm going to take the Aces. I think Asia is just on a different level. I know she's going to show up every single night. I don't know that about Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu. I don't know that when they're playing the Aces. And I think Chelsea Gray is going to make enough contribution, or Jackie Young, or a Kelsey Plum. Again, it's just I can go to a lot more names with the Aces on top of them having the best player. That's kind of the easiest way, I think, for me to sum it up. But let's go to the other one. I think this is another really, really interesting series. I'm going to be locked into this one as well. Minnesota Lynx versus the Connecticut Sun. Probably the 2 best defensive teams in the playoffs. The Lynx have been better offensively than Connecticut, but like we were talking about in the last series, they had some people come alive offensively, and if that happens again, that makes them very scary with how they can defend the basketball. Joe, what do you got in this one?
Man, every time I say I don't trust the Suns' offense, they prove me wrong. So I'm gonna take the Suns in 5, but I'm gonna give the Suns in 5 because I think Minnesota Lynx with Collier, that offense, she's gonna have a couple games where she can win the game for them because they're the 2 best in the league. So it's gonna be some low scoring game. Yes, I'm changing my finals prediction because of the Suns. That's exactly what I'm doing. Because they can keep the offense up, man. It's scary. Like I'm changing because I've been calling their offense out all year long, and every time I call them out, they prove me wrong. I'm gonna let them change my mind, and I'm changing my finals pick. I think the Suns gonna make it, and I think that they're gonna be able to keep up the offense. They're gonna have a hot streak going, but I'm gonna pick them in 5 because I am gonna respect Minnesota. They're good defensively, and I'm gonna respect the St. Louis local. Collier gonna be able to have a couple good games where she can team on her back and win a couple games. So I'm gonna take the Suns in 5.
Yeah, I think this one's so interesting. I've been a big fan of how the Sun play all year. They play a very Miami Heat-esque style of basketball, where it's not always very pretty, And then we kind of saw like in the last round, it's like, well, but then they got that offense that I'm always begging for my Heat to get just when it matters, right? So it pains me to do this, but I'm gonna stick with my preview prediction. I'm gonna go Lynx. I'll tell you what worries me the most, though, Joe. Let me just give you some stats from the previous series for the Minnesota Lynx. Points per game. Nafisa Collier, 40. Caleb McBride, 17.5. Sharpshooter was unconscious. We go all the way down to 12 points per game for Bridget Carlton, and then 10 points per game for Courtney Williams, and everyone else is under 10. That scares me against the Sun, who if they put Dejanay Carrington on Nafisa, or and some of the other great defensive players that they have.
Player of the year.
Yep.
Shout out Carrington.
Yeah, that just Alyssa Thomas, again, another good defensive player, as well as all the stuff that she does offensively. It scares me. I don't feel great about the pick, Joe. I feel a lot less confident about the pick now than I did just a week ago when we were going over our finals prediction. But very excited to watch this series. I love what both of these teams kind of bring to the table. I think the thing that clinches it for me for the Lynx is the fact that I think they can match defensively what Connecticut can. And so at that point, who do I trust to be able to get buckets in the clutch? Nafisa. That's what it comes down to. I think they're both going to lock up, and I think as good as Alyssa Thomas is, getting herself a bucket is not as natural and as easy for her as it is for Nafisa. So I'm going to go Lynx, but I can't wait to watch. Before we go into Love or Violence, these games do start tomorrow, and that tomorrow is September 29th at 3 p.m. I believe we have the Aces kicking off the second round. And then I believe the Sun and Lynx kick their series off tomorrow as well. I want to say at 7 p.m. Eastern, or 7:30. Oh, no, 8:30. 8:30 p.m. Eastern for the Sun and the Lynx. 3 p.m. Eastern for the Aces and Liberty. I will be tuned in with football on, kind of as the side to my main dish of WNBA. Yep.
So you're gonna have a side.
Joe, you know how we end this show? Only when it comes to watching sports.
I'm saying that's what you said.
Something like that. But Joe, you know how we end this show? We choose love. We choose violence. You feeling? You get all that hate out your heart last night?
Nope, I got more hate.
What you got? More hate?
No, more hate. Hate. You know what? And everybody, ESPN on College Game Day ranked off all the great things they did at Alabama and how great it is with all the charities that he created and done this and that. And I had to sit there and listen to him spew on the NIL and talk about, yeah, I want these players to get paid, but what equity are they making in their futures and how important is their futures? This is the same man that owns Mercedes-Benz dealerships in Miami. So that's racking in a lot of money. Has multiple revenues from multiple streams of revenue streams to make so much money outside of football. But this guy is the same guy who him and his wife said they don't want to do football because the players care about money too much. So instead of helping and teaching these kids how to spend and invest in their futures, he decides to walk away and do what? Keep all the things that he created off the backs of these football players. But then also double down and make some extra millions by talking about it now on TV. So he didn't really lose anything at it besides the struggle of players asking for money. So instead of embracing the situation and say, hey, yeah, you got $1 million for playing football. Let me show you how to invest that so you can have some after you're done playing football. Just like I did, because you guys made me millions, and now I have all these different revenue streams outside of football. But instead, as a greedy coach, like most of these coaches are, these players, but as soon as it gets too much of a struggle for them and they lose some power, walk away, but they still have plenty of revenue streams that they made off the back of these players. And you can love Nick Saban. I think he's a great coach, but I'm not sit there and let him act like it's a horrible thing when he's the one that walked away from the players. The players didn't walk away from him.
Yeah, I'm a little torn because I do agree with him to an extent on I think the NIL money and how there's not like a system in place
I agree with that part.
to help like students understand fully the decision they're making. Like I just go back to when I was 18 and I chose to go to St. Louis University. I loved my time there. We had great times there. I had great times with all of my friends there. You know, I think I did learn a lot. The amount of money that I signed on to as a loan at that age was not a good decision. That was not a financially smart decision. Now I am making my way through it and that's all great. My issue is all these students have been being flashed this money by a bunch of adults making them promises. And I don't know that that really is in the best interest of those students. And they're hopping from school to school to school. And a lot of these kids aren't going to have professional careers. So I'm all for them getting their money. I think they should get money. That's not the issue. I think it's the issue that there's no guardrails and no like professional resources that is being given to them by the NCAA or by these schools to help them make these decisions. Like that onus is on the school to basically just do right by them, which I just don't think is very smart. Now, I do think Nick Saban liked it a lot better when he just handed kid an envelope of cash under the table and his only worry was about getting caught. You know, I think that played a much larger role into why he walked away and doesn't want to have to compete in a more free market. But I do think there was an ounce of truth into what he was saying. But I do kind of agree. It's just like, all right, like as a guy that's profited off of this, like let's maybe ease up a little bit on being this huge critic. Now, if he wants to take a constructive point and say like they need to do this better, the NCAA needs to do this better. Got me, sure, absolutely. But yeah, I am choosing hate for all these people that just want to look for a conspiracy for every goddamn thing when it comes to the sports industry, Joe. We talked about a pre-show. The ACC did not make some goddamn call for the Miami Hurricanes to win the game last night. That was clearly, in my opinion, an incomplete pass. Now, how they ever even ruled it a touchdown to begin with, no idea. You want to have a gripe with that? Have a gripe with it. But the right call was made. That's what should be the focus. The right call was made. That was not a catch. Not in college, not in high school, damn sure not in the NFL. Like that was not a catch. And I'm seeing all these people like, oh, the ACC came in, they made a call. They're claiming this somehow made the ACC money. All these, no, the ACC has an automatic bid, basically, to the college football playoff. They don't need Miami to get a fake win in week whatever we're in 5 or 6 of the college football season for them to still make money. Like the ACC is just trying to hold on to teams at this point. Like Miami is likely leaving the ACC one way or another, along with probably Florida State and eventually Clemson, because they don't want to be the ones stuck holding the bag of what is left of the ACC. So no, it does not behoove them to do anything for a team that is likely going to leave. Miami won the game. Was it closer than it should have been? Of course. We kind of saw the full Cam Ward experience in that game. A lot
of
he was
playing against
unbelievable
his
plays.
Crazy.
I did not know that.
Virginia Tech quarterback
it was just the full Cam Ward experience. He had some plays where you're just like, what are you doing? How are you a highly touted prospect and quarterback? But then you're like, oh, that's why. Because he just makes some plays happen out of nothing and was incredible.